social distancing and limits on public gatherings were no longer needed. Take a look.
We moved out, and today, 75 days later, we are ready. Today, there are no active cases in New Zealand. We have tested almost 40,000 people for COVID-19 in the past 17 days, and none have tested positive. We have had no one in hospital for COVID-19 for 12 days. It's been 40 days since the last case of community transmission, 22 days since that person finished their self-isolation. And so today, I can announce that Cabinet has agreed we will now move to level 1 to get our economy fully open again, and we will start almost immediately. We move down to COVID-19 alert level 1 from midnight tonight. At level 1, we expect the continuation of recovery. After all, at level 1, we can hold public events without limitations. Private events such as wedding functions and funerals without limitations. Retail is back without limitations. Hospitality is back without limitations. Public transport and travel across the country is fully opened. This freedom from restrictions relies so heavily on the ongoing role that our border controls will play in keeping the virus out. But we must remain mindful of the global situation, the harsh reality that the virus will be in our world for some time to come. We are confident we have eliminated transmission of the virus in New Zealand for now, but elimination is not a point in time. It is a sustained effort. We almost certainly will see cases here again. And I do want to say that again. We will almost certainly see cases here again. And that is not a sign that we have failed. It is a reality of this virus. But if and when that occurs, we have to make sure, and we are, that we are prepared. And so our all-of-government team will continue working with sector groups, businesses, hospitality firms, churches, schools and others to encourage them to display QR codes via posters at the entrance of premises, as most of you will have seen at businesses who are out and about it over the weekend, so that everyone can maintain their diaries via the New Zealand COVID Tracer app. Manual sign-in is no longer required, but we do ask that you put up a QR poster at your door of your premise if you're a business so people can scan it and just keep a record for themselves. Now, at level 1, you can, unless you feel unwell, go back to your place of work. For our part, we've asked the State Services Commission to issue new workplace guidance to make it clear that every public sector worker should return to their usual place of work, taking into account flexible work policies.
The South Pacific nation, with a population of 5 million, has had 1,154 confirmed COVID-19 cases and 22 deaths. There have been no new infections for 17 days, and until Monday, just one active case for more than a week. Details of the final patient were not released for privacy reasons, but it's believed to be a woman aged in her 50s who was linked to a cluster at an Auckland nursing home. New Zealand's move down to level 1, the lowest rating on its fourth-year virus response system, means nightclubs can operate without dance floor restrictions and theaters will reopen. The Prime Minister also said modeling showed the economy would operate at just 3.8% below normal at level 1, compared with a 37% impairment at level 4 lockdown. Now, this also means for New Zealand that sporting events can proceed with crowds in the stands. A change New Zealand Rugby said offered its Super Rugby Aotearoa competition the opportunity to achieve a world first when it kicks off this weekend. NZR Chief Mark Robinson said, and I quote, "We're incredibly proud and grateful to be the first professional sports competition in the world to be in a position to have our teams play in front of their fans again." While many other sports competitions around the globe have announced plans to restart, the vast majority will be played either with no crowds or numbers severely restricted. The United Kingdom introduced a 2-week quarantine for most people arriving from abroad. Giving us this update, joining us live is JL Bautista. Hello, JL.
Hi, Alma. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for asking. So,
Yes.
yes, go ahead.
Yes, indeed. Britain introduced a 2-week quarantine on Monday for most people arriving from abroad to try to limit the spread of the coronavirus, a measure roundly condemned by the ailing aviation sector. The measure, which applies to both residents and visitors with some exceptions, aims to prevent a second wave of contagion from abroad. To enter Britain by plane, train, road, or sea, travelers must provide details of their journey and the address where they will self-isolate. How the quarantine will be implemented differs between Britain's devolved nations, and the measures will be assessed every 3 weeks. Exemptions are being made in several cases, including for lorry drivers, essential healthcare workers, and people traveling from Ireland who have been there for at least 2 weeks. Authorities in England will carry out spot checks, and those breaching the rules could be punished with a £1,000 fine or prosecution. Home Secretary Priti Patel told skeptical lawmakers in Parliament last week that the measure was backed by the science, supported by the public, and essential to save lives. The government is pushing ahead with a gradual lockdown easing that will see retail open on June 15 and restaurants and bars begin limited service in early July. But the devastated hospitality sector relies heavily on tourists, and business leaders fear the quarantine will mean much of the summer season will be lost. It comes after heavily hit Italy reopened its borders last week, and other European states follow suit. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson's government is trying to arrange travel corridors with countries such as France and Spain that could see them lift their quarantine demands. But officials are reportedly giving themselves until late June to strike these deals, and the airlines behind the lawsuit say they cannot wait that long. Also, critics question why Britain which was hardest hit by COVID-19 in Europe, and is also gradually easing lockdown, is inflicting more pain on hotels and airlines, reducing travel from countries with fewer virus cases. British Airways and budget carriers EasyJet and Ryanair have launched joint legal proceedings against the government over what they called a disproportionate and unfair step. Ryanair chief Michael O'Leary told Sky News on Monday the plan was useless and unforeseeable, and said it would devastate thousands of jobs in British tourism. The chief executive of London's Heathrow, John Holland Kay, told the City AM newspaper that it could lead to the loss of potentially 25,000 jobs at its airport, which is a third of staff. Health Secretary Matt Hancock said the new rules made sense because the proportion of infections that come from abroad increases as Britain's own caseload drops. And Britain's official death toll of 40,542 trails only that of the United States. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much, JL, for that update. Thank you, EBC, United
Thank you,
Kingdom
Alma.
Bureau.
Thank you. Reporting from London, United Kingdom, this is J. Bautista. We live in interesting times.
To Spain now, where Madrid and Barcelona is moving to phase 2 of the coronavirus de-escalation plan. Joining us live is Marco Alipio. Hello, Marco.
Yes, Alma, hello.
Hello.
Yes, so as of now, Madrid and Barcelona, Spain moved to phase 2. Madrid and Barcelona and its metropolitan area, Lleida, Girona, and central Catalonia moved to phase 2 of the de-escalation plan to ease the lockdown in Spain. Remember that there are 4 phases before Spain can have the new normal, and this is what expected to happen in the end of June. While other regions are now in phase 3, or the last stage of plan, Madrid and Barcelona, Spain were left behind because of COVID-19 cases on these regions are high. Children can go outside as often as they like, without time limits and beyond 1 kilometer's radius, as long as they remain within the same province. Adults over 14 are not bound by the timetable that was earlier in place, and are allowed out to exercise anytime between 6 a.m. and 11 p.m. Business and meetings and conferences can now be attended up to 50 people as long as social distancing is observed. Phase 2 means further loosening of lockdown restrictions. Here are things allowed in Phase 2. The limit on private gatherings in Phase 2 is now 15 people. This can be done in private homes or public spaces, including restaurants, bars, and terraces. Shopping must limit the capacity to 30% in common areas of shopping malls and 40% to within the stores themselves. Dining in restaurants are allowed as long as occupancy is capped at 40% and people are grouped around tables 2 meters apart from other customers. Public swimming pools can now be open but allow only 30% of usual occupancy with advanced booking and keeping 2 meters apart. Showers and changing rooms will not be opened. Religious gatherings are allowed to have 50% of its original capacity, but must maintain social distancing. And that's the latest here in Barcelona. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much for your update, Marco. Stay safe, stay alert, stay healthy.
Thank you for reporting from Barcelona. I am Marco Alipio, and we live in interesting times.
To Belgium now, it has just entered its phase 3 of lockdown de-escalation. Maria Dawson joins us live from our EBC Denderleeuw Belgium Bureau. Hello, Maria.
Hello, Alma. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for asking. Is there updates from Belgium?
Yes. So starting today, June 8th, Belgium is on its phase 3 of the exit plan. The Belgian government gathered on June 3 to talk about the rules and activity that will start as of today. In Belgium, there are 59,226 confirmed cases with 9,595 deaths, but 16,291 have recovered. The Belgian government has set up 6 rules that should be implemented by everyone to help decrease the numbers. Number 1, hygiene rules must remain essential, preferably to the activities outdoors to lessen the risk of infection. Number 3, take extra precautions with people in risk groups. Number 4, the social distancing of 1.5 meters is still applicable. The last 2 rules are very important starting today. We can have closer contacts with people of maximum 10 and doesn't have to be the same people every week. And the last one, if we do something in groups, it cannot be larger than 10 people, children included. On phase 3, catering, sports, and culture were the main topics of the gathering or the meeting of the Belgian government on June 3. For the catering industry, so cafe, bars, and restaurants may reopen, but between each table there must be a 1.5 distance and also maximum of 10 people on each table. And they're only allowed to open till 1 a.m. This last rule is also implemented for night shops. Even the government allow catering businesses to reopen based on an SNI survey, the Syndicat Neutre pour Indépendants, or in English, Neutral Trade Union for self-employed person, 1 out of 5 catering businesses won't be able to reopen because they won't be able to comply to the new security measures. Another new thing that will be here implemented in Belgium is a consumer check. It's a check of €300 that will be provided by the employer to the staff so that they can help the sectors worst hit by the corona shutdown. For sports, they won't allow any audience, but starting July 1, there will be audiences of maximum 200 people, but the wearing a face mask will still be highly recommended. For religious services, they can resume their services with a maximum of 100 people, and also starting July 1, it will be increased to 200 people, but physical rituals that require physical contact cannot be, so it's still forbidden. Teleworking is still highly recommended, and trips within Belgium for 1 or more days will be allowed again, and Belgium will receive a 10 journey rail pass to encourage them to travel within the countries before the end of 2020. And lastly, starting June 15, traveling to other countries or within the Schengen zone will still be allowed, but also depending on the rule of the country of destination. Prime Minister Sophia Wilmès also mentioned that there might be a phase 4 and 5 in July and August, depending on the health situation of the country.
All right. Thank you very much, Maria, for that update. Thank you, EBC Belgium Bureau.
Reporting from Dandelieu, Belgium, I'm Maria Dawson. We live in interesting times.
To Japan now, where the economy has contracted in the January-March to March quarter, confirming a recession due to the impact of the coronavirus pandemic. Plus, it has set aside a budget to combat the effects of COVID-19. That and other news. Joining us live is Dennis Liu.
Hello, Alma.
Hey, Dennis.
Good evening.
Yes, good evening.
Hello, Alma.
Yes, Dennis, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, good. Yeah, Japanese growth figures were better than initially feared in the first quarter, according to official data published on Monday. But the world's third top economy was still mired deep in recession. Gross domestic product contracted by 0.6% in the January to March period compared to the previous quarter. Authorities had initially reported a 0.9% contraction. Economists had expected the revision, with the market forecasting a 0.5% contraction. The figures confirmed that Japan was suffering its first recession, defined as 2 consecutive quarters of contraction since 2015. A tax hike and typhoons hit Japan hard in the fourth quarter of 2019, sparking a 1.9% contraction compared to the previous period, even before the coronavirus pandemic battered the economy both in Japan and worldwide. Japan has been hit less hard than most advanced economies by the coronavirus, with just over 17,000 cases in the whole country and around 900 deaths. However, authorities urge people to stay indoors for several weeks at the height of the outbreak in Japan, which affected the capital and economic powerhouse, Tokyo, the most. Most analysts believe that Japan's economy will suffer further in the coming months as the effects of the restrictions on economic activity feed into the figures. Meanwhile, the Japanese government on Monday submitted a second supplementary budget plan for the current fiscal year to respond to the impact of the coronavirus pandemic. The Diet is set to discuss the economic package worth a record 31.9 trillion yen, or more than $291 billion. Lawmakers are expected to approve the budget this week. The budget includes about $27.3 billion to develop treatment drugs and pay bonuses to medical personnel to support the healthcare system. It also allots nearly $18.5 billion to a program to finance 2/3 of rents over a period of 6 months for businesses that suffer a sales decline. In other news, Alma, Japan has opted out of joining the United States, Britain, and others in issuing a statement to condemn China for moving to impose a national security law on Hong Kong, apparently to avoid creating friction with Beijing. According to one of the officials, representatives of the Japanese government had been approached in a back room to take part in the release of the statement but rejected the offer. Tokyo's decision has been received with dismay by Washington, among others. A further rise in tension between China and the United States over the Hong Kong issue could also complicate Japan's plan to receive Chinese President Xi Jinping as a state guest. No date has been set after the visit was postponed amid the coronavirus pandemic. Alma?
All right. Thank you very much, Dennis, for your updates there in Japan.
Thank you very much, Arma. This is Dennis Liu reporting live from Tokyo, Japan. We live in interesting times.
Surging fatalities in Latin America helped push the global coronavirus death toll above 400,000 on Sunday, even as Europe emerged from its virus lockdown with infections increasingly under control there. Now, Brazil has the world's third highest toll, more than 36,000 dead, but President Jair Bolsonaro has criticized stay-at-home measures imposed by local officials and has threatened to leave the World Health Organization. Tolls are also rising sharply in Mexico, Peru, and Ecuador, while in Chile, total deaths have now reached 2,290. Chilean Health Minister Jaime Manelich said on Sunday that some miscounting pointed out by the World Health Organization in March and April was corrected, pushing the toll up from 1,541 on Saturday. But in Cuba, President Miguel Diaz-Canel declared the pandemic under control after the island nation registered an 8th straight day without a death from COVID-19, leaving the toll at 83. The number of infections has reached almost 7 million worldwide since COVID-19 emerged in China late last year, forcing much of the globe into lockdown and pushing the world economy towards its worst downturn since the Great Depression. Cariocas enjoy the easing of lockdown measures as Rio de Janeiro Governor Wilson Witzel published a decree that allows the reopening of shopping centers, bars, and restaurants, in addition to allowing outdoor exercises, despite COVID-19 cases still on the rise in Brazil. While some are happy about the easing of restrictions, others remain cautious.
A Covid é uma coisa terrível, muita gente morreu. Mas eu acho que já houve contaminação suficiente para a curva virar. Então está na hora de abrir tudo.
Mas é isso, eu acho que a reabertura tem que começar a acontecer de uma forma devagar, gradual, principalmente com essas áreas, com a área de lazer, onde a gente consegue manter distanciamento. Restaurante é um negócio complicado, porque existe um certo confinamento com ar-condicionado, cadeiras muito próximas. Se você criar regras bem estruturadas, a gente consegue fazer de uma forma mais responsável, né?
Brazil has the third highest death toll in the pandemic after the U.S. and Britain. The country of 212 million people has now confirmed more than 645,000 cases of the virus. And experts say under-testing means the real numbers are probably far higher. Fiocruz, Brazil's leading state-run health research institute, warned last week that the curve of new infections was still growing in the state of Rio de Janeiro, and that loosening containment measures in one municipality could threaten neighboring cities. To Australia now, Canberra eased some coronavirus restrictions. Christelle Ibuna reports from Australia.
It has been over 2 months now since the coronavirus pandemic has reached Canberra, Australia. ACT is considered very lucky with only 0.02% of its 457,000 residents recorded positive. 104 of the 107 cases has recovered and only 3 unfortunate deaths, all of which were isolated and treated in the Canberra hospital. There has been no new case to this day, with over 12,000 Canberrans tested for the coronavirus.
The Canberra government closed down non-essential businesses and services, such as retail shops and restaurants, limiting to only takeaways and home deliveries. The state also banned gatherings such as weddings, parties, funerals, and religious services with greater than 10 people. Businesses, especially government departments, has encouraged their employees to work from home if possible, to abide to the restriction of limiting the number of people in a facility. As for employees who still work in their respective workplace, they are expected to practice social distancing, good hand hygiene, and wearing of face masks and gloves if necessary.
Although the restrictions have not completely vanished, it is still recommended for Canberrans to continue to practice social distancing and good hand hygiene till a vaccine or a solid treatment plan has been implemented. It is best for us to listen to the government and the healthcare team for instructions and updates. This is Cristal Laguna from Canberra, Australia, and I am 1 with 25.
To Russia now, Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin announced the first steps to allow Russian citizens to travel beyond its borders after they were close to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. Take a look.
Распоряжение правительства, которое дает возможность гражданам России выехать из страны, чтобы позаботиться о больных родственниках, проживающих в других государствах, а также для тех, кто едет на работу или учебу. Выезд предусмотрен и для россиян, которым необходимо получить медицинскую помощь за рубежом. Въехать в Россию смогут и иностранные граждане, которые собираются пройти лечение в российских медицинских организациях, а также однократно те, у кого здесь живут близкие родственники, опекуны или попечители, которые нуждаются в уходе.
Meanwhile, Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin also announced on Monday the end of a strict anti-coronavirus lockdown that has been in place for weeks in the Russian capital. From Tuesday, the city's self-isolation and pass system will be canceled, he said in a video message on Facebook, adding that Moscow is returning to the usual rhythm of life. Moscow, the largest city in Russia with population of some 12 million, went into lockdown at the end of March to slow the spread of the coronavirus. The capital remains the epicenter of the pandemic in Russia, with around half of the country's 476,658 virus infections. City officials had introduced a strict permit system to allow Muscovites access to public transport and taxis for work and essential activities. Moscow residents, including the elderly and those suffering from chronic diseases, will be allowed to leave their homes beginning Tuesday. Hairdressers, beauty salons, and vets will also be allowed to reopen on Tuesday. Libraries, real estate offices, and companies that provide services to residents will be allowed to resume their work beginning next week. Museums and zoos will reopen to visitors who purchase electronic tickets, and sports events will restart with no more than 10% of stadiums filled. Mayor Sobyanin also said restaurants and cafes would open in 2 stages beginning June 16, with Moscow residents allowed to visit terraces, with further restrictions easing the following week. Meanwhile, malls and temples reopened in several cities across India on Monday, despite the country recording a record daily number of new coronavirus infections, with the pandemic expected to ravage the country for weeks to come. After a 10-week lockdown, the government has risked lifting some restrictions in a bid to ease the devastating blow to the economy dealt by the coronavirus. But the number of new cases rose by 9,983 to 256,611, according to government figures announced on Monday, putting the country of 1.3 billion on course to overtake Britain and Spain among nations with the highest number of infections. The reported death toll of 7,135 is much lower than reported in other badly hit countries. But the epidemic is only expected to peak locally in July, according to health experts. Still, in the capital Delhi, shopping malls, restaurants, temples and mosques were allowed to reopen for the first time since March 25. The response was tentative, however, and only a trickle of people returned to some places of worship. Delhi is one of India's worst coronavirus hotspots, accounting for more than 27,600 cases and 761 deaths, although media reports say the real figures are much higher. Mumbai, which accounts for around a fifth of India's cases and hospitals have been overrun, was more cautious. Roadside shops were allowed to reopen, but malls, restaurants, and hair salons remained shut. The Indian government said the tough lockdown it ordered on March 25 has limited the spread of the coronavirus, but it's now braced for a major hit to the economy with millions of laborers now jobless. Rating agencies have said the economy could contract by more than 5% this year after average growth of about 7% over the past decade. Now, the World Health Organization on Friday said it was studying a possible link between COVID-19 and an illness similar to Kawasaki disease that has sickened and killed children in Europe and the United States. Let's take a look.
So-called pediatric inflammatory multisystem syndrome, or PIMS, is a sometimes fatal illness affecting children and teenagers. It's a severe immune disorder whose symptoms are a persistent fever, sharp abdominal pain, swelling of the lymph nodes, rashes and a swollen tongue. PIMS also leads to inflamed blood vessels and in some cases damage to the heart. Symptoms are similar to Kawasaki disease, a rare condition that occurs in very young children. However, in cases of PIMS, the inflammation as well as the damage to the heart are much more marked in cases suspected of being linked to COVID-19. And the syndrome can also affect older children from 5 to 20 years. Although most children affected by PIMS tested negative for the new coronavirus, many tested positive for COVID-19 antibodies. This means they caught the virus earlier, but the body fought it off. Experts speculate that the virus could trigger a violent delayed reaction in the immune system, which causes it to turn against rather than protect the tissue and organs of affected children.
Eagle News, we'll be right back.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lumipas man ang panahon hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
COVID-19 is an infectious disease caused by a new coronavirus introduced to humans for the first time. It is spread from person to person, mainly through the droplets produced when an infected person speaks, coughs, or sneezes. These droplets can land in the mouths or noses of people who are nearby. These droplets are too heavy to travel far in the air. They only travel approximately 1 meter and quickly settle on surfaces. This is the reason person-to-person spread is happening mainly between close contacts. The exact time that the virus can survive on surfaces is not yet known. So it is wise to clean surfaces regularly, particularly in the vicinity of people infected with COVID-19. Hands touch many surfaces, which can be contaminated with the virus. You should therefore avoid touching your eyes, nose, or mouth, since contaminated hands can transfer the virus from the surface to yourself. When coughing or sneezing, cover your mouth and nose with the bend of your elbow or use a disposable tissue. If a tissue is used, discard it immediately into a closed bin. The most effective way to prevent the spread of the new coronavirus is to clean your hands frequently with an alcohol-based hand rub or soap and water. This will eliminate the virus if it is on your hands. Stay healthy and prevent the spread of COVID-19.
Councilors in the U.S. city of Minneapolis pledged to dismantle and rebuild the police department after the death in custody of George Floyd sparked nationwide protests about racism in law enforcement. Let's take a listen.
Our commitment is to end our city's toxic relationship with the Minneapolis Police Department, to end policing as we know it.
Police are not the right response for a myriad of issues: mental health crises, domestic violence calls, opioid overdoses. So there is an opportunity for us to be able to explore what our next steps. But really, we're going to be hitting 2021's budget very hard.
George Floyd was killed on May 25 when white Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin pressed his knee on the unarmed black man's neck for nearly 9 minutes. And Chauvin has been charged with second-degree murder and is to appear in court on Monday, U.S. time. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, however, is against getting rid of the department, and the head of the city's powerful police union, Bob Kroll, appeared on stage last year with President Donald Trump. The vote by a majority of councilors came a day after Frey was booed and asked to leave a defund the police rally. He later told AFP he supported massive structural reform to revise this structurally racist system, but not abolishing the entire police department. Disbanding an entire department has happened before in the United States. Back in 2012, with crime rampant in Camden, New Jersey, the city disbanded its police department and replaced it with a new force that covered Camden County. Compton, California also took the same step back in 2000, shifting its policing to Los Angeles County. However, the move to defund or abolish the Minneapolis department is far from assured, with the civil rights investigation likely to unfold over the next several months. Now, chanting for justice, protesters rallied in European cities, joining a wave of demonstrations sparked by the death of African-American George Floyd at the hands of U.S. police. Take a look.
Sentarme en el metro y a lo mejor alguna señora se va a sentar a mi lado y de repente me ve y sale a disparar corriendo. Cosas así, detalles, pero no deja de ser racismo. Y más que racismo, mira, es como, no sé, da pena.
In other news, an acute shortage of workers has turned the roar of machines to a soft hum at a footwear factory near New Delhi, just one of thousands in India, struggling to restart after an exodus of migrant workers during the virus lockdown. Take a look.
बीच में से ये टिड्डियों का तीसरी बार हमला है और काफ़ी किसानों के फसलों को इन्होंने चौपट किया है, जो काफ़ी कुछ नुकसान हुआ और काफ़ी अपने किसान अपने जो ऊपर ही इन पीपों और थालियों से इनको उड़ाया।
Okay, that was an outbreak of locusts in India, with swarms spreading through much of the western states in India and destroying tens of thousands of hectares of cropland across the western and central India this year. And it was the country's worst pest infestation in almost 3 decades. Eagle News will be right back.
Batid ko po at nating lahat ang suliraning dinadanas po ngayon ng buong mundo. Nakakalungkot man po, ngunit may mga kababayan po tayo na namamatay at dumadanas ng matinding paghihirap dahil dito. Ngunit huwag po sana tayong mawalan ng pag-asa dahil isa lamang po itong pagsubok na kapag po nagtulong-tulong tayo ay malalagpasan din po natin.
At sana po kahit na tulad ko po ay nananatili tayo sa loob ng ating mga bahay, ay gawin pa rin po natin ang lahat ng ating makakaya upang tumulong. Marami pong paraan upang makatulong mula sa ating mga bahay. Meron na pong mga online donations, meron pong mga iba pang paraan ng pagtulong. Lalo na po para sa ating frontliners. Maraming salamat po sa lahat ng mga nagbubuwis ng kanilang mga buhay araw-araw para po sa ating kapakanan.
At sumunod po tayo sa government natin because at the end of the day, everything that they're telling us is for our own safety. At higit po sa lahat, make sure to pray for everyone, pray for everything that is going on right now.
What is important is to hold on to things, for us to stay more positive, for us to be more strong, not only physically but also mentally. Spend time with our loved ones, with our families, and let's all trust God. Continue to be loyal to Him, always be more prayerful, and stay positive, stay safe and well, and God is all with us.
Stay positive pa rin po ang paningin natin sa buhay, at stay healthy, stay at home. Higit sa lahat, huwag po natin kakalimutan ng manalangin sa ating Panginoong Diyos dahil ayun po ang sagot sa lahat po ng problema. So, mag-ingat po tayong lahat, and God bless.
So maraming salamat pong muli sa mga frontliners at sa lahat po ng mga gumagawa ng lahat ng kanilang makakaya upang makatulong. God bless you all.
The heir to South Korea's Samsung empire appeared in court on Monday as judges deliberate on whether to detain him over a controversial merger of two business units seen as a key step to his succession. Lee Jae-yong, vice chairman of Samsung Electronics, is already being retried on charges of bribery, embezzlement, and other offenses in connection with a corruption scandal that brought down former South Korean President Park Geun-hye. Dressed in a dark suit and wearing a face mask, as you can see here, due to the coronavirus, Mr. Lee appeared grim-faced as he entered the Seoul courthouse without answering questions from reporters. Monday's proceedings are separate from his ongoing retrial, but add to the difficulties for the Samsung Group, by far the biggest of the family-controlled conglomerates or chaebols that dominate business in the world's 12th largest economy. Prosecutors are seeking an arrest warrant for life for Mr. Lee on suspicion he was involved in price manipulation and illegal trading during the 2015 merger of Cheil Industries and Samsung C&T. The transaction was seen as helping ensure a smooth third-generation power transfer to Mr. Lee, a scion of Samsung's founding family. Chaebol families often have only a small ownership stake in their empires, but maintain control through complex webs of cross-shareholdings between units. Mr. Lee was the largest shareholder in Cheil Industries, and critics say Samsung sought to artificially lower the price of C&T to give him a bigger stake in the merged entity, a key part of the Samsung structure, consolidating his grip on the conglomerate. In a statement, the Samsung Group rejected media reports of price manipulation as groundless, adding Mr. Lee did not take part in any illegal acts. The prosecutor's request comes weeks after Mr. Lee issued a wide-ranging apology for company misconduct and promised to end the line of family succession. Mr. Lee, 51, was jailed for 5 years back in 2017 in connection with Park's corruption scandal, but was released a year later on appeal before the country's top court ordered him to face a new trial. Samsung's overall turnover is equivalent to a fifth of the national gross domestic product, making it crucial to South Korea's economic health. Samsung Electronics shares were down 0.35% in early morning trading in Seoul. And now back to India. An acute shortage of workers has turned the roar of machines to a soft hum at a footwear factory near New Delhi, just one of thousands in India struggling to restart after an exodus of migrant workers during the virus lockdown. Take a look.
Now, since the migrant laborers are going back to their hometowns, not just this industry, the entire economy, Indian economy is going to suffer.
समाधान होगा इसका तो नहीं कह सकते। अब वापस भी आए कि नहीं आए तो, लेकिन अभी जो यहाँ मामला हम रुकने का नाम नहीं ले रहा, तो सोच रहा हूँ कि अपने गांव चले जाऊँ, अपने गांव में सही रहेंगे।
And in this time of uncertainty, as we come out of the pandemic with many out of work and countries just restarting their economies, the Iglesia Ni Cristo, or Church of Christ, has reached out to essential workers in southeastern United States. Philip Toledo joins us or reports from Georgia. Hello, Philip.
Thanks, Alfred. The Iglesia Ni Cristo, or Church of Christ, recently held simultaneous aid to humanity events in the southeastern United States, aimed at helping essential workers and communities jumpstart recovery from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. This was held in various states in the region, and church members joined together to combine their efforts. From central Georgia to the Atlanta area, church members coordinated to focus on the individual essential workers that had served each family both before and during the current pandemic. They put together appreciation packs filled with healthy snacks and essential items such as hand sanitizer and cleansing wipes to deliver to their mail carriers, delivery drivers, and other essential workers. The recipients expressed their surprise and joy at the heartfelt thanks they received from these tokens of appreciation.
Hello, and thank you so much. I'm so proud to be your letter carrier.
Thank you, INC, for the goodies. Thank you so much.
In Alabama, church members from across the state and even Nashville converged at a Huntsville post office to show support for postal workers, giving out help packages of household items such as toilet paper and cleaning supplies, as well as packages of food. Ministerial worker Brother Benjamin Marges spoke to the dedication of essential workers throughout the past few months. Let's take a look.
The importance of having this is to show our appreciation to the community in all that they have done, especially for us who receive things on a daily basis. We know once again that they work so hard. Sometimes they have no sleep. Sometimes they don't even get to go home to their families. And we wanted to just put a simple smile on their face, while as well showing to the community that this church indeed exists.
Finally, the Church of Christ members in the North and South Carolina areas conducted an Aid to Humanity event in High Point, bringing needed supplies to the community. 500 special bags were prepared, containing pasta, bread, canned goods, as well as a case of water for each family. Wearing masks to help with social distancing, and undeterred by rainy weather, volunteers gave out over 300 bags to local families in a drive-through setting. The rest of the supplies were donated to a nearby shelter that was having trouble acquiring such items due to grocery shortages in the immediate area. This multi-state effort by the Iglesia Ni Cristo to lend a helping hand comes as residents of the southeastern United States are trying to recover from the economic effects of the coronavirus pandemic. If there's something we can learn from this, even during current times, the simplest tokens of appreciation can bring joy and brighten the lives of those around us. In Atlanta, Georgia, Philip Toledo, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Philip. Before we close, we leave you with a word of hope. At the end of the day, there remains so much more to be grateful for. See you again tomorrow evening. Good night. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.